We've done it, everyone. We've made it to the first of what will likely not be many 12-team playoffs. Through all the trials and tribulations of the 2024 college football season, through all of the piles of garbage that have been put onto the field, we've finally collected 12 pieces of filth that will spend the rest of their season beating the piss out of each other for the crown. As Alabama and Miami fans continue to cry in the corner, let me introduce you to all of the nominees for the title. You must feel awfully proud of yourselves. Among all the failures every other team in the country had to suffer, you've managed to be the only squad to come out unbeaten. Unscathed isn't quite the word I'd use, considering you are still fighting the overrated narrative. The third year for Dan Lanning was led to its fair share of heart attacks. When the Duckies are on, they are potentially the most lethal and elite powerhouse in the country. But when they're off, though, out comes football excrement the size of a rhino's balls. Such was the case as they started out with 2 duds of a performance against Idaho and Boise State. As we'd later find out though, Boise had Genty ball, which would later become one of Oregon's most quality wins. The Duckies spent the rest of the season being too strong to die. Heisman finalist Dylan Gabriel spent Oregon's first year in the Big Ten going a genocide route and annihilating anyone and anything that stood in their way. With wins over Ohio State, Illinois, and eventual runner-up Penn State, Oregon has collected a decent resume and won the Big Ten title in their first year of being there. Mario Cristobal could never. At this point, the question becomes, where will they fall, if ever? The high-end talent appears to be too much to overcome, but Wisconsin uncovered a potential flaw with the flow of their offense: Tez Johnson. With him on the field, the offense is a monstrous entity not even the Doomslayer would want to touch. Without him, not so much. They have other playmakers such as Evan Stewart and running back Jordan James, along with a defense that has been far more consistent than the offense. With the Duckies never claiming a national title, many say that with a team as strong as this one, the odds of them getting it this year are pretty damn high. But it's easy to pick the number 1 seed to win it all. With the gauntlet of opposition they'll have to face to get there, the offense will have to stay dependable for the entire time length. Now break it down for them, Duck. Along with the sounds of my anguish, what you have just heard was the sound of many keyboards immediately heading to the comment section, because if you don't immediately validate the average Georgia fan off the bat, the hate will follow immediately afterwards. Well, they are not alone in this department. This certainly makes it almost impossible to root for them. Anyway, despite what is going to be another year in the playoffs for the Dogs, some are calling it a down year for Kirby Smart. Carson Beck returning to the fray did them good, but he lacked many of the weapons that enriched the offense previously. But the game was rigged from the start, as they had to deal with one of the hardest schedules in the country. Wins over Clemson, Tennessee, and Texas on 2 occasions did them well. Alabama and Ole Miss will be waving the banner of which they beat you while they watch your team from the couch. Say what you will about the Dogs, but they are most hungry when it counts. They'll lose just about every regular season game they can before arriving to the postseason and summoning the power of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's who they are. Not just that, but they'll pretend they are down, they are out for the count, and then go down by 28 or more before coming in with the RKO saying fuck you and all of your hopes and dreams. I should know. This team has been making my life ever-living hell since I birthed the name Squidtard. If there is one significant lingering question in orbit though, it's the status of Carson Beck. Getting a UCL tear during the SEC Championship, there is no telling whether or not he'll be ready to play in the Sugar Bowl. Unless he goes the future Gohan route and one-arms the entire thing, Gunnar Stockton is likely to take his place. Kirby Smart will be on a destructive route to claim his 3rd national title. With a much easier route than Oregon, the possibility lies in orbit, and its effects will ripple across the entire internet. Build your anti-Mickey Mouse shelters now. It was guaranteed that a team from the Group of 5 level would be playing with the big boys in December. What wasn't guaranteed was that they would be getting a first-round bye over a power conference. We all thought that fight against Oregon was telling us more about the Duckies than it was anyone else. Boy, were we wrong. While they did take a loss early in the year to the Duckies, they were much more competitive against them than most Big Ten teams, and Idaho. Everyone else they played has been swiftly put to bed. Boise State carries everything and more that you'd want with a team that is at the Group of 5 level. A great offense not being sandbagged by a terrible defense. In fact, their defense is actually pretty strong relative to any other at their level. This team is spearheaded by the great and almighty powerful Ashton Genty, Lord of Genty Ball. Having a breakthrough season which shattered school records and put him on the Heisman ballot, it's obvious even from the casuals that Genty is a god among running backs. Along with being the strongest playmaker of the team, he's also at the forefront of a major controversy which happens almost every year. The Heisman ballot has chosen Deion Sanders' adopted son over him for the right to hoist the trophy. While he himself is an elite talent, it potentially raised a fire under Ginty and the rest of the team. Either that or the fire they've been holding onto for the season has been smothered by this fact. It'll be up to them to decide what fate that'll be. They've been given an extra week to decide. Literally just one win will be enough to flip the narrative on the group of 5 in the playoffs. Despite no longer being a thing, the Pac-12's influence continues to spread like wildfire to the other conferences. The ACC and the Big 12 have been trading back-to-back spots for the position of being the tank conference. To this day, it's hard to tell, but for the sake of the Sun Devils, we'll refer to them as the top of one of the tank conferences. Arizona State has been fighting against the odds for the entire year. Projected to finish last in the Big 12, they've been at the forefront of flipping the entire conference on its head. Kenny Dillingham gave a big fat fuck you to everyone and threw a wrench or pitchfork into everyone's hopes for the Big 12. In an almost identical format to Boise State, they are a team with great quarterback play, great defense, and an elite run game that has spammed more than 4 verticals in the video games. The master of the offense goes to none other than the Wizard of Chaos in the Big 12, the great Cam Skibbity. I started that joke when I originally thought this was a 5-win team. To see how far he and the rest of the team has come is truly a testament to the job Dillingham is committed to. Even when regarding the self-mutilation of Colorado, BYU, and Iowa State, this is a significant feat for a program which has lived in the lifetime of mediocrity. They had more uniform combinations in the past year than they had successful seasons in recent memory. Of course, as we all know, the job is far from over. If they want to prove that they aren't just a consequence from the Big 12, they'll have to earn it once their chance arrives. ESPN is spending more time making up hypotheticals about Alabama in the playoffs than they are spending talking about you being in it. You've claimed an entire conference in less than a year, but can you claim the nation too? Never doubt the great Cam Skibbity. Texas is back. Back to being propped up by weak wins and a Charmin-level strength of schedule. It's funny I can leave the Big 12 and still have the honors of frolicking through your entire schedule like a field of flowers. Well, everyone except Georgia at least. Texas, like many of the squads in the SEC, has a ceiling with the talent level capable of going all the way. Quinn Ewokes has reached what will likely be his last year with Steve Sarkisian. The roster carried one of the highest talent composites in the country, so it's little surprise that they have found themselves in the college football playoffs when all is said and done. However, when Georgia gave him that giant home wedgie, they appeared to have taken their balls as well. Texas went from dragging everyone they played to just skating on by or spectating as the incompetents on the other side beat themselves. The Longhorn defense has stayed consistently locked down through the entire season, and it'll be a tough go for any poor soul they come across. Just look at what they did to Gunnar Stockton. Despite that though, Ewokes hasn't had his Superman performance yet. Whether or not it's in waiting or if it'll come at all is yet to be determined. With stats equal to the likes of Peyton Thorne, the overrated voices have started to become a little louder. It's been made clear already that Sark won't shy away from throwing his cheeks on the bench in favor of the latest spawn from the Manning clan, Mr. Arch himself. Without a strong and consistent run game, it's hard for the Longhorns to really do much offensively day in and day out other than, fuck it, Matthew Golden out there somewhere routine. Though the defense will be able to keep them in any game that they play, Ewokes will need to shine if Texas wants any chance of making it far. Whatever happens though, they'll get to firmly shit on Oklahoma for having zero preparation for the SEC. The 12-team playoff and the way it lines up benefits Penn State as a whole more than any other program in the country. Consistently stuck in the eternal 1-2 loss range and locked out of the division, the Nittany Lions would always have a reserved spot in the non-playoff New Year's Six Bowl. The running gag of James Franklin versus top 5 teams continues onward, as once again he was seen on national television with chocolate surprise coming down his leg. Of course, in the run to the playoffs, you have to be a team in most cases that relies on the clutch mode to carry you to the big dance. While the Nittany Lions had a fair share of blowouts and dominating performances, they ran into quite a few close calls as well. An overtime field goal to beat USC, a defensive dogfight against Wisconsin, and a 1-point win over the 7-5 Merchant in PJ Fleck. While the defense has let them down at times, Penn State's offense has received a massive buff this time. Drew Allard, with the help of Nick Singleton and tight end Tyler Ward, have created an offense that is actually effective against some of the top-tier opposition. While it didn't do jack all against Ohio State, they did you a favor by dying before the postseason even hit. granting you the opportunity to prove your worth in the Big Ten Championship. It sort of worked, as the offense managed to put the top-ranked Ducks on high alert through the game. They didn't win, but they were competitive, and under the Franklin regime, that's a step in the right direction. The question now becomes whether or not Penn State can somehow carry this momentum into the playoffs. With offensive play calling that is either genius or smooth brain, there's no telling what we are going to see in the playoffs. They'll be blessed as they get to host the Horsies and the Lions Den to start their exhibition in the postseason. If you screw this one up, Franklin, the fans might throw you in the coctagon. Someone else that's heavily benefiting off the 12-team system is in the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Only in this system could you lose to a group of 5 team and still have a shot of winning a title. How the hell do you expect me to start this off? Everyone and their pet goldfish struck out Notre Dame as being a playoff contender the moment Marcus Freeman managed to lose for the second time against a group of 5 team. And this was after beating a top 25 team on the road. Most teams following this absolute clown show would succumb to their loss and Purdue themselves for the rest of the year. Such was not the case with the Catholics. What followed after their embarrassing loss was a lineup of infinite ass whoopings they gave out to everyone in their schedule. ACC, Big 12, Service Academy, it didn't matter. Transfer Riley Leonard shredded through every opposition like paper. The run game was an unstoppable force that nobody could do jack shit to shut down. They dominated everyone. So much so that Freeman got an extension. Just like how NBC's dong extends every time your logo is on the screen. Just in time for the Cathedral's rebuilding, Notre Dame is back in the playoffs. Ironically, ever since they took that loss to Northern Illinois, they've been one of the most consistently elite teams in college football. But many wonder if the Fighting Irish actually have been battle-tested, or if their record is simply a fluke. Whether or not it was, or the loss to NIU is, one of the two is certainly true. You're too scared to join a conference, so this answer is yet to be determined. Now's a better chance than any to prove that the loss doesn't determine what type of team you are at the end of the road. Winning some playoff games is the only guaranteed way to make up for the tomfoolery of that game. The playoff committee may not remember, but we absolutely do. It shocks absolutely zero people that the Nuts are here. If you're going to spend $20 million on your roster, I think being one of the teams dancing is the lowest of expectations. Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Julian Say, and the list goes on. Ryan Day spent all of his marbles in making sure they lived up to their heavy expectations. How'd it go? Suboptimally. I could tell you more, but there's someone else who knows the struggles far more than I do, considering he lives in it. Tell them, Buckeye.
You're goddamn right I know pain, Squid. I know a lot of pain. Look at our last game against Michigan. Yeah, we lost. We shot ourselves in the foot more times than Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, we almost beat Oregon, and if it wasn't for a freshman mistake by Jeremiah Smith and a senior moment, I guess you could say, with Will Howard, we would have kicked a field goal and won that son of a bitch.
Here, Howard! Howard! What are you doing? Throw the ball! Throw the fucking ball!
But shoulda, coulda, wouldas are about as cheap as pennies. And I'm tired of giving the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Unlike most Buckeye fans, I am not wearing rose-tinted glasses. Mine, as you can see, are very clear. And clearly, Ohio State is one of the most talented teams in all of college football today. Yeah, we bought the fucking team with $20 million of NIL, and it was worth every goddamn penny. Jeremiah Smith, we signed him straight out of high school, and he has been lights out the whole way. Retaining Ibuka, getting Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Downs, you name it. Every single player you can think of at Ohio State this year, yeah, we paid them a lot of money, and they're fucking worth every penny. Now, I know Tennessee has had itself a little bit of a feel-good season. Nico, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, is breaking out and having himself a stellar season. Sampson, your running back, he has been playing magnificently. 1,200 yards rushing, I believe, 22 touchdowns. That is a fine accomplishment. And as a former college football lineman myself, I admire the fact that your defensive front is nothing but a brick wall. But you guys have not been relevant since the late 90s. Since, I don't know, a certain Manning, not wearing burnt orange, walked through your field. And while this might be your time, I'm afraid you've run into a brick wall known as the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah, the last time we played you guys was in the Citrus Bowl in the 90s. And yes, you did win. And Ohio State has a little bit of a reputation playing SEC teams in which we don't normally win. I dare remind you, in 2014, 80 yards through the heart of the South, Zeke Elliott, Cardale Jones blasted Alabama's title hopes into smithereens. Yeah, they got us back in 2020, but that was a COVID year. No one gives a shit about COVID. No. Tennessee, I admire you. You guys have a lot of upside. And you guys are a young team, and you're going to be good for a long time, I think. But you're always going to be inferior to Big Brother. And whoever it is, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, you need to remember one thing. We're just as good as those that beat your fucking ass every season in SEC play. Mark my words, you come into Ohio Stadium on Saturday, December 21st, I don't care how many of your fans got the secret cheat code to get tickets to the game. You're going to be leaving early, heads hanging low, disappointed that you got your asses whipped by the Ohio State Buckeyes.
This is a clear way to know that college football has gone completely off the rails this year. The Tennessee Volunteers have made the college football playoffs. The butt of many college football jokes, the bane of Twitter, the Big Orange Circus itself is still in the running for a national title. What a timeline we're living in, huh? Tennessee has been an extremely difficult team to get a read on. Josh Heupel's offense is known for being high-flying, high-scoring, and elite. But after their third game of the season, it went like Danny Phantom and went ghost. Ever since then, the so-called elite offense is nowhere to be found. Freshman quarterback Nico I'm Gonna Love Ya was an interesting bag to see unfold. He had his moments of greatness, making elite plays when needed at critical moments of the game. But he had quite a few plays which were so bad not even the sickos could stand to look at it. Stack this fact with an offensive line that has more holds in a drive than decent pass blocking, and it's a recipe for disaster. Though this is all true, Tennessee's passing incompetence was blacked out and thrown to the shades because of the run game. Dylan Sampson would be the shining light of the offense that earned him SEC Player of the Season. He ran through defensive lines so much that Mia Khalifa got jealous. Despite these facts though, Tennessee ran through some speed bumps on their way to the end of the road. The Vols took their yearly loss to Georgia, along with their yearly unexplainable loss to an unranked sub-500 SEC team on the road. These two things are assured in life along with death and taxes. Thankfully, in the new age of college football, the mutilation of all the other teams in front of them paved the way for the Volunteers to bullshit their way into the college football playoffs. Though they are the first of the teams on this list to be thrown to the RV and sent on the road, where the nuts themselves await in Columbus. With simplistic play calling like what the Vols have, we just kinda have to hope and pray that they never figure out the run game. Nonetheless, go Vols, screw y'alls. Now where can I find some Michigan fans? I got a couple of words for this one. What in the hell? There is nobody, not a damn soul on planet Earth who saw something nearly close to this happening. The only thing more shocking than Florida State falling off the face of the earth as hard as they did was Kirk Cignetti immediately taking to earth and eating it whole. With a talent composite made up of a bag of Lay's potato chips, Indiana was projected to be one of the worst squads at the Power 4 level. They not only smashed the expectations they were given, they went so far beyond that they left this dimensional plane. There were a couple of parts of the story that certainly went in their favor though. The schedule is so soft it makes Texas look like they were playing the '85 Bears every week. But when you're Indiana, you'll take what you can get. And so far, what they are getting is the greatest season in program history. Curtis Pork wound up being the quarterback they wanted him more. They've got a great offense, a strong front seven, and one of the most important details of all, great coaching. It's impossible to talk about Indiana without talking about the job that Kirk Cignetti has done this season. Or Kirk Cignetti. If you really talk about that right now, then you must be really bored. Anyway, people are going to be quick to point out said schedule they had, but to do with what he had with the roster was a massive flex. I don't give a shit how old he is. There are a lot of programs in the country who will be throwing planet loads of money at him at the end of the season. All that said, the job is not over as we all know. People are going to be quick to say that this team got exposed as pretenders against Ohio State. Indiana has the ultimate chance to refute this as they head to South Bend for the state title. which also happens to be a playoff game. If Indiana happens to win this game, it would be a generational victory for the program. So cook the pork and smoke the Signettis. For those of you saying Indiana going all the way is impossible, you clearly do not understand the nature of this game. Nobody's safe. This is yet another rare occurrence. We were made to believe that there was only room for one group of 5 team in the college football playoffs. This seems to be false though, as there is another group of 5 horse in the 12-team race. The SMU Horsies have garnered a similar reputation to the likes of Indiana. They've dragged everyone they've played with the exception of the higher competition. There was no certainty on how SMU is going to do transitioning from a lower tier conference to the ACC, but I suppose the jokes write themselves about that conference anyway. The Horsies retroactively gained complete control of the conference as everyone else in it completely died, with the exception of one specific transfer portal denier which we'll touch on in a moment. Anyway, Rhett Lashley has created what looks to be a squad that can pony their way all the way into the Natty, if they play good enough. What they lack as compared to other teams though is defensive consistency, as they would go from blinking most offenses they play to letting Bill O'Brien shred through them. They've got the equilibrium of a wet spaghetti noodle. This would reach its apex when SMU's luck would run out in Charlotte, as Clemson would hand them their first conference loss on a walk-off field goal. But while they did lose this game, they ended up giving their conference the ultimate favor in the end, as they put 2 ACC teams in and cucked the cousin fuckers down in Tuscaloosa in one blow. Because of that, they somehow slid their way into the dance. This program suffered a death penalty and spent their entire lifetime in the depths of the lower tier conferences, and they still made the playoffs before Florida. SMU will need a great performance weekly from Kevin Jennings, as their defense is already proven to lack the clutch bone necessary to win these upcoming games. The odds are against them, but it's sometimes these exact teams that face the odds and shove them up the asses of the NCAA. This is like the friend in your group with the foot fetish. They don't belong, but they're there anyway. I suppose we can thank Mario Cristobal's for that. Being the oddball of the group of teams in the dance, Clemson has been ruled out of playoff eligibility multiple times this season. Ass whoopings from Georgia and Louisville have everyone thinking that they were done for with no hope of coming back. But just like with Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers or Pennywise or that stupid ass doll with a knife, they always come back. Even after losing a She-Beamer at the end of the season, the previously described walk-off field goal clinched them a spot in the playoffs with 3 losses. Who else but the grill master himself could pull off such a feat? Dabo Swinney is back in the college football playoffs. Unlike previous years though, where he had Heisman-level quarterbacks and elite defenses, he has Cade Klubnik and Wes Godwin. Good fucking luck, bro. All tomfoolery aside, Cade Klubnik has actually had a decent year. In fact, he's been doing most of the heavy lifting for the Taters. Phil Maffa is helping out with running the ball, but Clemson's air ball appears to have taken a significant step forward. Clemson's defense, however, is a former shell of itself, disappearing for entire quarters, leaving guys more wide open than a black hole, and soft-ass coverage in the backfield, ensuring that even the most mid-quarterbacks are picking up 15 to 20 yards a carry. Thankfully, this isn't the norm, it's the outlier. Clemson is a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type of team. You can rely on them to pull off the basics with minimal effort most of the time, but whatever witchcraft you saw with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence is lacking with this team. Nonetheless, as the 12th seed, they have the greatest shot to play major spoiler in the playoffs if things go their way. Maybe Klubnik should get his head back on the important things, such as not trying to get some action right before a playoff game. That'd be a great idea. Well, now you know the teams. As for who I'm picking to make it to the final game of the season, I've got no damn clue. There's just so many uncertainties with all of these teams, it's hard to get a read on any of them. But if I had to pick, I'd have Oregon taking on Penn State for a rematch of the Big Ten title. The Ducks are a clear-cut favorite, but Penn State just seems to be the most favorable pick out of the right side of the bracket. Georgia's facing injury issues, and Notre Dame is still searching for their defense after what Lincoln Riley did to it, so they just seem to be the most reliable option here. But all we know in college football is that there's only one constant: chaos. See you all soon, and power to Tardaria!